Hey, I'm Rohit,
I'm Gabby. We're Old Soul.
and you're listening in time.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of In Time UK. Today we're joined by Rohit and Gabby from the band Odd Soul. They've got some incredible music, and we've both seen you guys live, and we've both been to Neighbourhood as well, where we've seen you play Rohit and played alongside you as well. You probably don't remember me, but I've borrowed your guitar a few times. So yeah, welcome to the show, guys. How are you both doing?
Yeah, doing good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're good. Thanks, man.
Come on. I guess we'll start from the beginning. Then, how did you guys meet, and how did the band form?
Well, basically, I came to Birmingham for uni in many years ago. I can't remember what, maybe like 5-6 years ago. And basically, my main thing was I want to be in a band. It's kind of all I did before uni. So I came in and like found some people on my course and around about, and then over like a few years, the lineup's changed slightly, and we kind of got Gabby on down the line a bit later. And then kind of that was like the crystallization of what Odd Soul was. So that was just post uni, and then being around in Birmingham, having the fortuitous luck of meeting Gabriella, and then formed this band and have been like sort of gigging and writing since.
Yeah, cool. I mean, how would you guys say that your roles individually fit within the band, and what do you all like contribute to the writing process, or is it mainly one person?
Yeah, we definitely all bring something different to the table. And I mean, our writing process is really fluid. Like, it's not the same for a single chart each time, So a lot of the time, one of us will come up with an idea, like a riff, a melody, even just like sometimes I'll come up with the words first, or I'll hear a melody in my head and then kind of like send a voice note. We've got like a little file share thing set up where we put in our ideas and then we just feed off of that, and each of us will add to it or talk about how it could maybe be developed, things we like, things we don't like that.
I often describe it as we get an idea and then we stand in a room for 6 hours, argue, and at the end something comes out.
I was about to touch on that then. I mean, how do you deal with, like, I don't know, clashes of personality, or whenever someone writes a part and not everyone really likes it, or the person that you don't want to insult them, or you don't want to make them upset. So how do you go about dealing with that?
I say we deal with it very poorly. No, we're not that bad. Essentially, I think our main problem, I think, is we tend to like overanalyze stuff. I don't know if Cabs agrees, but we kind of like do something and then we'll keep coming back to it and coming back to it and coming back to it. And on the one hand, it does refine stuff and is quite useful, but sometimes it is a bit soul destroying to just be like, oh, everything we did last rehearsal, that was kind of all rubbish. Let's just chuck that in the bin and do something else. But I think generally our tastes are fairly well aligned. We all like slightly different things, but it kind of comes together, and I think that process makes quite a, if I do say so myself, quite a unique sound.
Yeah, I agree with Rohit for the most part.
Oh.
I would say
here's another argument.
This is the end of the band. Sorry, guys. Sorry you had to hear it.
We can be quite diplomatic, which is really good. There are times when we have clashes and we might actually not resolve it in that rehearsal. We might have to come back to it. But I definitely agree with Rohit in that he said sometimes we can overanalyze. And that has its pros and cons. And the cons would probably be sometimes we overcomplicate an idea. But the good thing is we always come back and we somehow magically find ourselves on the same page. and sometimes we're like talking about the same thing, but in a different way. So yeah, communication.
Sort of like our answer to this question.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. The irony. I guess, Rohit, you mentioned you moved to Birmingham from another town or city. Then you came about, like, you had this objective of, I want to form a band. How did you find it coming into a city which, everything's new to you, trying to find people that actually have a similar taste in music? Because that's another level of difficulty to it, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, for me, like I just met people. A lot of people were from my course because I was studying music. Not performance, but like it was basically a classical music degree, but a bit broader than that. But essentially, just hanging out with people, meeting people, and just chatting to them about what music they liked. And I guess when you're on a music course, you meet lots of people who play instruments. So yeah, it was just a case of meeting people, chatting to them, getting to know them. Me and Simon, the guitarist, used to sit in our like uni room in first year, like till 4 a.m. playing each other like obscure British post-hardcore bands together. So I was always like, Simon knows the good stuff. Simon, like we play like, I don't know if you guys were into that, but like we play like Ruben, and like we got heavy into Fightstar as well. Fightstar were my favorite band for a long time. So that sort of stuff. So with Simon, I knew that. But even then, when we had like the lineup changed a few times because like we just had a few jams with people at uni, and then certain people were like weren't quite didn't really want to do it or whatever. So yeah, it was tricky meeting people. It wasn't tricky meeting people, but it was tricky finding the right people. And then once
Definitely.
you did, it kind of we sort of knew when the right lineup came along.
So I guess you had you released an EP in 2018 called Movies, but like how long before that did this all happen on the timeline of things? Like how long did it take to come to finishing that EP?
Quite a long time actually, because I think that was our first thing. So we did it all completely ourselves as well. So we like kind of begged, borrowed, and stole studio time from actually BCU. We had a mate there who like was like the studio manager, so he managed to get us in. But even then, we recorded it like I remember we recorded some of those songs like in 3 times, like top to bottom, which is an interesting process actually, because at the time we weren't too hot on like home recording. So each time we would record it, we'd like try something brand new. So the first time we tried to like layer it, the second time we tried to like do full live tracks, and then the third time we just tried to layer it again because like the full band vibe, just we didn't have the capability to do it. But each time we did that, we'd like change the song. Like the song Movies, for example, just warped so much from the first time we recorded it to the time we actually released it. Like there was just bits added each time, and it was really a really interesting process. But it all took like about 1.5 years, I reckon. Which was a long 1.5 years.
I guess this has Odd Soul as a project. Is it a full-time project that everyone works on, or is this like a part-time thing and everyone's got a day job in between?
Well, I think most of us have got other careers. It's not yet a sustaining model. That would be pretty nice if it was. But yeah, it's like some of them are teachers. I'm an events producer, so put on lots of like gigs and stuff. Gabs is still a student. I think Seb, the bass player, is like the only full-time musician in the band, but he like does lots of like functions and has a burgeoning Instagram career. He's a bit of a star.
Oh yeah, he's quite popular on Instagram. Yeah,
he's a very popular man.
I think Joe fancies him a bit, but
don't we all?
Yeah.
I guess as musicians, and like, so I suppose the best way to categorize your music is future soul, right? Or would you put it any other way?
I don't know. What do you think about that, Gabs?
I mean, is that the same as neo soul? Like, we're definitely fusion. I feel like fusion is always the word that sticks to us.
It has like the problem I have with fusion. It has this like weird 70s like illusion of like all of those bands, which I don't think we're not particularly Matheny-esque or whatever. The way I always envisioned it was like it was that kind of future soul stuff, but quite a lot of us like heavier music, so it was always going to be for me. Like I remember writing a bio, which is the worst thing in the world, but it was like Hiatus Coyote, fist fighting, like explosions in the sky, and other like big post rock bands, which is all like dramatic soundscapey things. So yeah, I think that for me anyway, that's what always I kind of saw it as like, yeah, future soul, but like with big old guitar noises. Yeah. There's also a band that I really like called Mute Math, and I used to say to people, we're like Mute Math but jazz, but very few people have heard of Mute Math, so it didn't really work as a marketing tool.
I feel like there's going to be some like musical snobs out there that just get triggered by like, you know, like certain phrases, like, you know, where everyone in Birmingham, not you guys, but so many bands in Birmingham, like, oh yeah, we're an indie band. Like, what does that actually mean now? Or like, we're an alt rock band. And it's like you're turning fusion into that genre, into that next phrase, all but jazz. We're like this for
Yeah.
jazz.
Oh, I always struggle with genre as a thing anyway, because all the music I like generally is like stuff that's like in between. So it's like, oh, it's sort of like this, but also it has influences from all these other places, I guess. So it's yeah, I don't if generally with my music taste, and this is probably the sounds very snobby as well, but like if a thing is a thing, then it's usually less interesting.
So I guess, Rohit, you mentioned you've got like post-hardcore and heavier influences. Gabriella, where did your influences come in with a lot of the songwriting?
Well, I listen to a lot of kind of soul and like a mixture of R&B. So who would I say? Leanne LaHavis is a big one for me. Even with jazz, Esperanza Spalding, um, a bit more soul, Corey and Bailey Ray. Like I just love their they've got this whole down to earth vibe, but they're also like crazy talented. And I just like that. I like that kind of like effortlessness that comes across in their writing, and they're always like storytelling.
Yeah.
So I mean, I try to incorporate a bit of that in what I bring to Odd Soul. But yeah, like Rohit said, I joined the band a wee bit later on. So our EP, like all of those songs were written before I joined, and I joined like just before our launch. So I'm on the EP, but I've written like all our newer stuff basically, like is my lyricism. Yeah.
Rohit mentioned that you're still a student. Are you studying music as well?
Yeah, so I just finished an opera degree at
Wow.
the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire,
Oh,
and I mean when I came, oh yeah, I said I finished. Now I'm starting a master's in jazz.
That's it.
Yeah,
wow.
which is really exciting. And I feel like when I first came to Birmingham, like 4 years ago, I was opened up to the world of jazz a bit more, because my background is like MT, musical theater, classical training, things like that. So, um, jazz and that whole side of things has just been like something that I enjoy listening to, but not something that I'd really gotten into until I moved over here. So um yeah, I'm still studying, but I had like this major project in January which kind of helped uh, set everything up for me in a way. So now I'm planting my feet in jazz a bit more, and yeah, I feel like I can actually say like I'm a jazzer now. Before I was just pretending.
Yeah, we all dream of being able to call ourselves official. I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but one of the things that we always like to talk about with our guests is music education, and we've had lots of different opinions. Like we've had Domi officially slagging off Berkeley, and we've had Ariel Posen saying that BIM is the best thing in the world. What do you guys think about the music education system?
I have very strong thoughts, but Gabs, I mean, do you want to start?
Sure, yeah. I think, I mean, for the most part, my experience has been really positive, and I think you need to be quite sure of yourself going into music education. If we're
Definitely.
if we're talking about like being trained, is that what you mean? Like being trained at a music institution? Yeah, I think um you have to be quite sure of yourself, not necessarily know exactly what, you know, where you're going to be in 10 years, but in the way that you shouldn't let yourself be easily swayed by the system, as it were, because a lot of people do go into these institutions and they are governed by the number that you end up with, every term, every year, at the end of your degree. For me, my personal stance is that it's all an experience, and for me that's been positive, but it's also what you make it. So I think I can only thank the people that I've had the pleasure of working with and being under under their guidance and things like that, because I've made the most of that. And what has shaped my time at uni hasn't just been like being at the institution. It's been meeting all these people and soaking up all these different experiences, like things like the neighborhood, not the neighborhood, things like neighborhood and other music events like that really allowed me to meet people. And I wouldn't have even been in Odd Soul if I hadn't gone to music college, so in that way, that's what I mean, like the experience is what you make it. But Rohit, I'm interested to hear.
Yeah.
My job in real life is like working at Symphony Hall in Birmingham, and I do a lot of like work with. I'm based in the jazz team at the moment, and we do a lot of like programming gigs and putting music on and all of that. And I think my problem with music school in general is it's another institution that isn't equitable, isn't like good for a scene. I think if you look at the demographics of people who go to music school, it's a very particular type of person. It's usually male, it's usually white, it's usually very well off. So I don't think it is representative of especially a city like Birmingham. Also, I think it's a very Eurocentric way of looking at music in general. It's like institutionalized. It's like these are the right ways to do it, and gives off this kind of air of competitiveness, which seems to me to be antithetical to music making and creativity. And it also ignores like a whole vast swathe of. It gives people like a very, especially jazz college from my experience, it gives a very specific thing of like, this is what jazz is, and ignores a whole vast swathe of other musicians and other ways of learning music and all of these things. So I think as are most institutions, to be honest, I think that it's quite a problematic place. Totally get that when you're in there, if you can take what you can and get the skills, that like you won't get better teaching than in an institution. Like you have like shit hot players teaching you how to do music. But yeah, I have a real problem with it really, and it kind of pervades people's thinkings and makes a scene a certain way, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing.
I think that both opinions are like incredibly refreshing to hear. I think so with Gabs' opinion on like, it is what you make of it. I think that's a really cool take on it, because that's sort of the expression I've sort of gone in with as well. But also what you mentioned, Rohit, where you don't necessarily need a piece of paper to prove that you can play an instrument or to prove that you're a musician, right? But it's something, well, for myself personally, I went in consciously being like, well, I don't really care if I fail the degree or if I do really well in it. It's more of a case of trying to meet the right people, and then, or, be like, it's sort of buying you time for 3 years to be like, all right, this is it. You got to try and set yourself up for success here. And if you don't, then it's only on you. But the biggest eye opener was when you get there and you realize that not everyone's of the same opinion. And some people are there to think that, oh, shit, I'm ready to become a shit up musician, but you're going to make me become a shit up musician. I'm not like, I'm not going to practice. What is practice?
But I guess, but the thing with that is like, what is a shit hot musician? Like,
yeah,
is it someone who's just like ripping at their instrument, or is it someone who's like really good at playing with other people and fitting in, or is it someone who's a really good writer? Like, all of these things are extremely valid, and I don't know how an institution can like mark creativity. How can an institution like govern what is excellent, what is good? I don't think that is a thing that an institution can tell you. That's yeah.
I mean, sorry, go on, Gabs.
Oh no, sorry. I was just agreeing, just saying I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that these universities try and do is that in the first year they try to get everybody at the same standard, which I think is the first mistake, because everybody has their own strengths and everybody has their own weaknesses, and everybody wants to capitalize on their strengths and other people want to capitalize on their strengths. So how can you get everybody to the exact same standard? Is that not just completely restricting creativity?
I guess the argument against it would be that like people who go know what they're signing up for, so they're applying for a specific thing. But I understand everyone has to be up to the same standard, but what is the standard? What is establishing? Is the standard, or you can? For me, it was like, oh, can you do Bach chorales? And it's like, well, I guess, but I mean, there's a video that's been doing the rounds, like the Adam Neely video about his music theory racist.
Oh
Which
yeah,
is
that's
sick. It's
interesting.
a really, really good
Yeah,
video.
it's a really good video.
And that kind of does bring up a lot of
It
the things
kind
I
of is,
feel,
yeah.
I think.
The conclusion.
But yeah, I get to know. Like, how do you teach? I mean, like, jazz is so broad, and yet why are there no like gospel musicians from the massive gospel community in Birmingham at the conservatoire? Is because it's not really like seen as the other. It's seen as an outsider. It's not like I don't know. It seems crazy that the conservatoire, especially. I don't mean to just crap on the conservatoire because there's loads of amazing people in there, but like, how can the course be so white dominated in a city like Birmingham? There's clearly something awry there.
I mean, yeah, we actually had Adam Neely on like a couple months ago now, but that was before he uploaded that video, which was unfortunate. But it was on the same day as the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, so I had a restaurant booking, and I had to cut the interview short, which was a bit bleak. So it was good feed though. If you've ever been to Dishuman, Birmingham, that's just opened up. But
yeah, I've been to there's one in Manchester. That's where I'm from originally, and
cool.
we went there with my parents over lockdown.
Yeah, I quite liked it. But going back to it, I guess Joe mentioned about like the teaching creativity and everything, and this is the first time I sort of thought about this the other day. But generally, people try and categorize things into either you either have a creative approach, you have a logical approach, right? Like, do you think I no longer think that's a thing? Like, you can't be one or the other, right?
I think we're always trying to put ourselves in boxes. So, I mean, I'll say it with everything. Like, no, I don't think you can be. I mean, yeah, you're not necessarily one or the other. I think we're always trying to put each other and ourselves in boxes, but everything is a bit of something else, and everything can be like merged.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a one size fits all for anything.
Yeah, it's like there's days when I'm like, yeah, I've written the sickest thing, and that sounds really cool, and that's new. And there's days of like, I've done all my jobs on my to-do list. Oh, it's sick. Everyone's got a bit of creativity. Everyone's got a bit of logic. I think it's like, yeah,
definitely. I mean, I hoovered the whole house yesterday. I was like, yes, this is it. I've completed life. I've completed. How to get by.
And there's that theory of like creativity where like it's like a thing that flows through you. It's not, you're not always creative. You just, it's about like capturing that moment when you feel like, oh, this thing is coming out.
Yeah.
It's not just you are creative or you're not creative.
Do you think it's possible to recreate circumstances to make it happen more often though? Like, there's certain things you could be doing, whether it's exercise or diet or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you set up the right environment for yourself, then you can optimize productivity for sure.
Definitely.
So,
Okay.
I mean, an example would be, yeah, like exercise. I think for me, I need to feel good to produce good work. And like, not just physically, but, mentally, I need to be there. I need to be able to be present. I need to be in a good state of mind. Even if, for example, with writing, if I'm writing like a sad song or whatever, or something that has that's like a sad story, I don't think I need to be like wallowing or be feeling particularly heavy to be creative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I do my best work when I'm in a really positive state of mind, and when I want to do what I'm doing, and when the environment's right for it. And that can be you can just have spur of the moment things like that, but you can definitely optimize your surroundings to make yourself want to be more creative, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess
yeah.
oh, I think for me it's I'm trying to get better at doing that. For me, it's always been like I'll be like watching a film or something, and something will spark it, and then I'll just sit in an intense period and like have like a couple of hours, and I'll like bash something out. But I'm trying to do like because I just
Music, flash music.
yeah. Pardon?
Yeah. No, sorry. Just so it doesn't get taken out of context.
Yeah. um, um, yeah. But no, I just over lockdown I've been listening to a lot of like Jordan Rakai talking about that. I can't remember, maybe it was on one of his videos that he was doing where he's doing. But essentially like doing a bit every day is what I'm trying to do. And while it might not always be good, it'll just get me into the habit of doing stuff. And I think finishing stuff is such a big thing. Just like actually finishing an idea.
It's the hardest thing.
It is the hardest thing. But once you get into a habit of doing that, even if the thing's bad, that will help. I think I'm not at that point yet, but I think that is a big thing when you can get that muscle going.
I only saw a couple of episodes of it, but Jordan Rakai did like a song every day or something where he was just like finishing all these ideas when he was starting them and finishing them.
Yeah.
That was like the start of lockdown, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think it was one of them that he said that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, sort of on the lines of building healthy habits and just keeping that balance of things from a work-life balance point, and this being like a part-time project, where does this sort of sit on that scale? Because it could be quite intensive, just to rehearse it and practicing the songs, whether it's gigging and everything like that. But then at the same time, it must be quite cathartic, right?
Yeah, for me, I think before lockdown, a lot of it depended on if we had gigs in as well. Like, it just the nature of the beast is when everyone's working and when you have intense periods, when you have exams or like, I had like festivals and stuff to program or whatever. Then it's more difficult. But around the gig time, that's when I think for me it feels more of an escape. Like, when we're playing on stage, it's a really good feeling, and it's songs that we've written, and like being in a room writing stuff together is quite an exciting thing. So that kind of keeps you motivated and keeps you wanting to do it and keeps you going. I think that's the easy bit though. I think that's the same for every band. Like the easy bit is like getting that relief from playing live or like writing stuff in a room. The bit where it becomes more difficult is like the emails and the kind of. I spent like a day the other day like logging all our songs on like PRS and stuff like that. Like all of those little nitty gritty things, they add up, and like just logistics. And there's a particular. Usually the gigs are great, but when the gig's bad, and you've like dragged everyone to the arse end of London, paid so much money for parking.
You're very specific here.
Gabs is laughing because she knows exactly what I mean. And you've like spent 15 emails beforehand going, I know we're playing in an outdoor market, but we're quite loud. Are you sure this is going to be all right? Are we going to be appropriate? And then you arrive and no one's there apart from the two acts before and after you, one who's an acoustic duo and the other one after is an acoustic trio. And you're walking in with like four keyboards, massive amps and guitars. Hypothetically, if that could happen.
As Gabriella and the boys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, was that what it was called? It wasn't called Odd Soul.
No, it was called Odd Soul, but the guy was like, "It's Gabriella and the boys."
Oh shit! That's how he introduced you onto.
Yeah. So, like, hypothetically, if that had happened, that makes it really hard to do as well.
Yeah.
But that's just being in a band, isn't it? Like, we're not at the point yet where we can like do a lot of massive tours and sell out venues. So.
Yeah, I mean, you've done some. Sorry, go on.
So I was just gonna say that particular example is just. For when we've put so much work in on our end and we've gone through details meticulously and made sure we've done our part, and then someone else that you're leaning on or expecting to have done the same thing, just no attention to that whatsoever. That's what it was felt like, one of those, and that that can happen. You can have moments like that.
How did that set go in the end?
Oh, it was awful. Really, really bad.
Was everything unplugged?
I
mean,
yeah, go on.
I think we are making it sound worse than it actually was. We were just looking forward to what sounded like a really amazing gig, and you don't go into any gig expecting that it's going to be bad, right? So the fact that this ended up being completely the opposite of what we expected, not due to our lack of communication, Yeah, that was just, I mean, we were just a louder band than everybody else, and our vibe didn't fit. So
Mm.
it was that incongruent feeling the whole way through, if that makes sense. So we did it, we did our best with what we had, but we did feel a wee bit out of place.
And I think because we'd gone all the way down to London, and we like invited some friends from London. So like in the crowd was like two of my friends from uni, and then like my auntie and her husband and their child, like small child. And so like just after you finish playing to just those people and like maybe six others in this huge room, to then have to like that thing of like, oh, that was really good. It's like, well, thank you for coming, but we know it wasn't, and it just maybe it was fine. I remember distinctly talking to my mate and him going, "Yeah, you didn't look like you're having much fun there," and I was like, "You have no idea, Christopher. You have no idea."
I mean, you've done some pretty interesting gigs though, because we did obviously some research before this. You've done So Far Sounds, and you've done some work with TED Talks as well, right?
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Talk us through that if you don't mind, like the So Far stuff and TED Talks, because they're pretty unusual gigs, and you know most bands probably don't get to do things like that.
Yeah, I can talk about So Far if you want to talk about TED Gaps. With So Far, it's basically they're cool. I did some work for them post that, but the original gig was really nice. We just yeah, it was just really fun. Like the whole vibe of the gigs is great. Like you have like a full room of people who just like really love music, and then you're with like two other mystery artists who are always great. So we had, I think, yeah, that was the one we did with Kofi Stone, who's like a Brum rapper who's awesome. And who was the other person that's really bad? Oh, I feel horrible. I can't remember. Was it Michael? It might have been Michael Bird, aka Darcy Holmes. But I don't know if it was. Anyway, he's great. You should check him out as well. But yeah, it's great. It's an intimate place. We did it at a place called Impact Hub. It's like this shared working space in Digbeth in Birmingham. Yeah, it was awesome. It was really good fun. I think it's interesting for us, like because they're generally a bit more stripped back, so we had to kind of change the set a bit. So it was an interesting vibe for us to do that. I think if we were to do one again, we'd maybe change a few things musically and like spend a bit more time on like arrangements and stuff. But it was good fun, and they're always lovely, and I would recommend anyone like get involved with So Far if you can.
Yeah, and with TED, so I think it was like TED Talk Cross Youth. Is that right?
It was TEDx Youth.
TEDx Youth, yeah, and it was in the Hippodrome Theatre in Birmingham, which is a cool venue. It was in like one of the black box kind of like theatre studio rooms. So it was like tiered seating, and I mean the audience for that particular gig, you know, they weren't just there for us, so it was a whole event with loads of different acts, different entertainment, and there was a bit of spoken word, poetry.
There's a few like it's like classic TED Talk speeches as well, like about specific stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So and I feel like the mood sort of ebbed and flowed. So like we had our quite upbeat set that we'd planned, and I think right before it was a really, really heavy talker. Like someone was speaking on something that was quite deep.
I can't remember what it was either, but I remember that. Yeah.
I remember it was heavy. It was like, okay, I in my head I was like, I need to somehow change the mood when I get on the mic, like, and do this in a somewhat seamless way. So yeah, I tried to get, you know, people standing and like bopping along. I don't really know, I can't really remember how that went, but all in all, it was fun. It was like you said, something different, a really cool experience.
Yeah. I remember like part of the other day, like sitting in the green room and talking to some of the organizers, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm really glad. I'm so glad you asked this, but like, I don't know if we're like, there's lots of people talking about very deep things here, and like, and then we were gonna go, hello, here's some songs that we wrote about films and that. So it was, and then the guy, bless him, he was like to try and make me like feel a bit less on edge about it. He was like, don't worry, man. Last year, like Kyoko played, and it was like literally, honestly, I'm not joking. It was my favorite thing of the entire day. I was like, he's like, so you'll be fine. I was like, oh, great. No, quite high standards to live up to there then. But
It's
yeah,
nice. It's fine.
yeah, it was fine. People were moving around by the end. I think they were like sort of doing like a little conga line around the thing. So yeah, it was pretty fun.
I suppose less so for this TED Talks event, but something that I find happens quite often around Birmingham gigs, like at the grassroots venues, right? Is like the lineups are like weird and wacky. Like, and I personally don't think it's in a good way. Like, you'll have like an indie act followed by a pop act followed by like, I don't know, like a grunge act or something like that. And I don't know, it's just mad inconsistent in terms of the sound that if you want to go on, go to a gig. I don't know if it's particular promoters or how it's coming to that. What do you reckon?
It depends where you look, really. Like, so the Hare and Hounds, King's Heath, they're great. Like, so they do a lot of venues. They'll just like take rentals into when people tour, but they also have like two promoters that program straight out of there. So the guys who run it, there's a promoter called Left Foot and there's a promoter called This Is Tomorrow, and they have much more like curated lineups.
Yeah.
So that's much more that. And then like Jazz Lines, I got a shout out because I work for them at Symphony Hall. We do like a few more like curated jazz stuff. I guess the stuff that's in like the Sunflower Lounge and those smaller venues in the center of town, I guess usually it's run by like Birmingham promoters and other like local promoters who they just, with those, they want to get lots of people on the bill. So it's not, I don't think it's quite as curated as the kind of This Is Tomorrow stuff. But it's the most like accessible for like bands starting up, and that's where they go to play, and that's who they go to get those gigs. So that, I think that's probably why. I think that's one thing that Birmingham lacks, is a bit more competition around those kind of promoters, in that there isn't like a promoter who does like grassroots level stuff that curates gigs. It's more just like, oh, new bands, get them on. Well, actually, that's not strictly fair. I think
there's
Sonic
some
Gun
for like indie music, right? I think Sonic Gun do that. I don't know.
So Sonic Gun, I was going to mention Sonic Gun. So there's a guy called Harry Young who's a bit of a ledge, and he did used to work for Birmingham Promoters. Now it's a Sonic Gun, but there's a festival last year called Discover, which he had a big hand in, and that was a bit more curated. And like, he basically like over the month of January like got a load of gigs pretty much every night, and that was a bit, again, more curated. Yeah, we played on that one. We played, we supported a band actually, because I wasn't too keen on doing another headline show because we'd done one pretty soon. So we supported a band called Spilt Milk Society, which I thought was cool because we generally get put on lineups that are more like soul-y and jazzy, which is great. But we got to go on a more rocky indie one, and I think like, just let's be a bit more gnarly, and like, which was fun, and the audience seemed to dig it, so that was nice. So yeah, I guess that was my long-winded way of answering that question.
I think the Discover Birmingham Festival was a really good example, because it gave like every band on the whole bill the opportunity to play in front of a big crowd as well, because essentially most of the shows were sold out. The stack lineup, so really, really up and coming bands. It was probably a great experience for people like that.
I think that's the way to do it, man. You get like bigger bands, and then you put cool supports on that are like local. That's how you build a scene. Like you kind of use the bigger bands to build up the little bands, and then everyone grows together. That's what I think is a good way of running it anyway.
I think one of the cool things that we've got going on in Birmingham, I mean, not right now, but pre-COVID and everything, was Neighborhood, which you guys are like a big part of, right? But that's like, I mean, for me, that probably fits more for me stylistically as well, in terms of what I prefer to listen to and what I prefer to play. But that feels like the home of the Birmingham scene right now, in terms of where it can grow from.
Yeah, it's super unique, and it's the best thing in Birmingham, simply because of the way it was started. So like, talking to Mike, who's the guy who runs it, essentially his mission, he moved from Leeds a few years back, and his whole thing was like, we don't have like a sort of selection-y vibe thing in Birmingham, and he really was keen on doing that. But the way he did it was he went out and just met loads of musicians and artists from all around Birmingham, from loads of different scenes, and like was like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, this is my vision, would you be interested in being involved? And so as a result of like organically going and meeting and putting himself out there, what he built was this thing where you get like musicians from the conservatoire playing with your gospel musicians, playing with your hip hop and rappers from like North Birmingham. And it's this one thing in Birmingham that I think that is like truly grassroots grown and like truly organically
It's
brought all these different scenes together, which I think is just an awesome thing, and everyone in the UK should be jealous, because but that's how I feel like things should be built, because it's like totally when people talk about like, oh, we want inclusivity, we want all of these things, that's the way to do it, like through actual like human relationships and building scenes like that. So that's why Neighborhood is so strong and why it has such buy-in from the community musicians and people who go and watch it, because it's like it is truly like built by the people for the people. Revolution.
No hierarchy, no BS, just like literally anybody can come and join. I remember my first Neighborhood. It was like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the scene. This is where it's at.
Yeah.
How long's it been going for?
4 years now, I think. They had the 4th birthday in November, or was it the 3rd birthday? I think it might be the 3rd birthday.
It will be more than it will be 4 minimum, because I went to my first Neighborhood before I met you guys, and that was the first year.
Yeah, maybe it's 4 then.
So this is where I get a bit jealous, because I only started going to Neighborhood as of February this year, which is the first and the last one I've been to.
Oh man,
I never knew about it. So I've lived in Birmingham, like I've grown up in Birmingham, but like I used to work. I worked as a contractor, so I basically moved out when I was 18 or something. So it was a bit, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have found it like if I didn't come back, but it's like literally, it felt like I went to Disneyland that day. That's my TripAdvisor review of Neighborhood. But I guess so we had JD Beck on a few weeks ago now, but something he mentioned, and this is like it's more of a question of what can we do as a scene or as Birmingham, right? But he just casually dropped it. It was like, oh yeah, I just jam with like Erica Buddy's house band in Dallas and stuff like that. But we don't necessarily have Erica Buddy's house band in Birmingham, and we don't really have that level of a scene, right? But what do we need to do to try and build that level of a scene? I think Neighborhood's a good place to start.
Yeah. You got thoughts, Gabs?
I mean, I was thinking maybe like inviting artists to things like Neighborhood.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool. Like, yeah, we have local talent in, and people who just want to like step up to the plate and jump in. But I think it could be really cool if, like, whilst like really investing in Neighborhood, bringing artists in from around the world could be really cool. I mean, maybe start out small, but then bringing in people who are gonna inspire and kind of get word out there, because if one big name like comes to Neighborhood, then that's a lot of that's reach, so that could be cool.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I the one thing that is an issue with Birmingham is, compared to other cities in the UK, people don't come to gigs as much. Like, you look at the audience figures for Birmingham versus other cities, it's not
abysmal.
there.
Yeah,
which is why bands tend to miss out Birmingham. Like, Snarky didn't play here on the last tour. Bon Iver, I was so gutted, right? They had a world tour and they had to cancel it, reschedule it all because of COVID. And I think this is a bit of wild speculation, but I think because ticket sales in Birmingham weren't as high as everywhere else, they've just scrapped the Birmingham gig. They've rescheduled pretty much everywhere else, but not Birmingham. So part of it is like people need to kind of vote with their wallets a little bit, and like when big artists come to Birmingham, like go to those gigs.
Yeah.
The other thing is, while that's not happening, while big artists aren't coming, really shouting about the smaller artists is the way to do it, and like doing gigs with, building the ecosystem in Birmingham in the readiness for the bigger artists coming down the line. So you like building up Neighborhood, but then you've got other things popping up that are kind of a similar vibe, maybe different genre wise, but like that kind of thing, and creating that like local buzz around it that makes people go, oh, what's going on in Birmingham? Oh, let's check that out. And then as soon as like the first person comes in and sees it, it's a bit more vibrant and has this buzzy music scene, they'll go back and tell people, and that's how you kind of build it. It'll take a while, and I think that's partially because Birmingham has only recently started to do that, because Birmingham famously has been viewed as quite crap for a while, but what that has left is space for people to do stuff, to make new interesting things and like grow stuff organically. So if more of that happens, I reckon 5 to 10 years down the line, we'll reap the benefits of that. The problem with that is we need to make sure that everything doesn't become too gentrified and too like young professional friendly, and make sure that like while we're doing that cool stuff, that like the community is involved and it's not just like banks investing and making stuff chic and posh.
I think as long as everyone like that's already part of the scene keeps the energy going, then people sort of jump on board with the enthusiasm, right? And like whether it's a case of, I mean, like myself and Joe, we always talk about it, like jumping on stage at a neighborhood, and like at which point do we think we've like overcome the anxiety to jump up and grab the guitar and stuff. But I suppose that's a big part of it, right? Like it's not really a pressure, it's just like the stress of thinking, oh shit, like everyone's going to judge me as soon as I start playing.
That is such an interesting thing, because that's a very jazz musician mindset, and it's seems to be very antithetical to music making. Like the idea that you don't want to go and play for fear of being judged by everyone else, that's not why you started playing an instrument in the first place, is it? That's the thing that's kind of built into you as you go along. And I guess like a healthy dose of self-criticism is always good, but like the way I sort of try to rationalize that a little bit is like, it's not about me showing how good I am. It's about going and like, whoa, what's cool sound can we make together? Like how viewing it as a collaborative process rather than like having to get there. And which is super tricky and like difficult to unlearn when you like always got that. But I think that once you kind of get into that flow, it becomes more fun for you, becomes more fun to listen to as well. And like, that's how you kind of create that connection, by like taking your ego out of it, kind of, I guess.
Definitely.
Which is the opposite of like a standard jazz jam where it's like, giant steps, 180 BPM, go! That's a different vibe, and I hate that. It feels uncomfortable, and it's also like quite testosterone male filled vibe.
Oh, it's such a problem.
That has not been my experience. Like,
yeah, it's that's a self-selecting thing where like it's a certain type of person that excels in that environment, and that is not me, and not most people, I would gather.
Yeah, I guess it's like once you're up there, like everything sort of change. I'm sure perspective would change in the sense that, just sort of living in the moment, I guess. Did you have something you wanted to mention, Gabs?
I mean, just to add, I would say like I'm a big believer in play, experiment, like make mistakes. Huge believer in that. I think that's the only way someone can flourish in music making. I think that takes away a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves, but also the pressure that we make up in our minds that's being added on by hundreds of faces watching or whatever, or however many. It's all an experience. So I think allowing yourself to play and make mistakes and know that that's part of the process. It's not you didn't mess up. It's just like that's part of what it is to make music. I think that's really important.
I think it's really important. Well, yeah, on that effect, I always manage to bring this book up, but I'm a big fan of the book by Kenny Werner, Effortless Mastery. But in that, he mentions like celebrating mistakes and, not being so hard on yourself about them. And it's a good thing that you're making mistakes, right? Yeah. I think it's a really cool take. But I guess we'll start wrapping things up now. With 2021, what is in store for Otto? Because you guys, I don't think you've officially released anything since 2018, have you?
You know that bit that we said at the beginning where we like take ages to do anything, we argue about songs and stuff.
Yeah.
Essentially, no, we've got like a huge bank of songs, right? And we were meant to go and do like a sort of an album recording almost in May. Obviously, it's this big international event that happened that prevented
Something
that.
happened. I can't remember what, but yeah.
So we didn't do that. However, there's a few tunes that we've finished recording almost, and yeah. So watch this space for some music coming out. We've written a load of stuff. We've got a gig coming up. I don't know when this goes out, but we've got a gig.
This will come out. I'll get back to you in a second. Yeah, if you keep going, sorry.
Well, if this comes out before the 29th of October, we've got a gig on the 29th of October. If it's out after that, we had a gig on the 29th of October, and it was really good.
Yeah, so I think this is coming out early December.
Well, there you go.
We could possibly bring it out just before October.
It was buzzing. It was just.
Yeah, it was great, man.
It was such a sick set.
Everyone had the best time ever, despite being sat down silent.
It went viral. The videos everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's caught record label's attention.
Band plays the best set of music ever.
By the time you guys hear this episode, Odd Soul basically are like huge now. They're the biggest hit in the UK.
We're the new Beatles.
You're the new Beatles. We'll quote you on that.
Jazz.
Beatles,
but jazz. Yeah, there you go. We've come full circle now.
I'm going to clip that bit up and clickbait that a little bit. I'm the new Beatles.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to plug? So your events producer. Do you do any teaching, either of you, or anyone else in the band?
Dicko does some teaching. Seb does some online teaching. Go follow Seb on Instagram. You'll love that.
If you don't know.
And also the best thing to do, which I know he loves, is that on the bottom of every of his videos, if you just comment, "Oh, have you tried playing less notes?" He loves that. He does love that, especially when I do it. Don't do that. That's mean. And I guess, shout out loads of good Birmingham bands like Darcy Holmes, Maddie Saskia, Gabs. Who else should we shout out?
Oh gosh,
Sorry
I'm
to put you
on
on the spot. Delta Autumn are great. Kofi Stone, Lady Sanity.
Zuga.
Who?
Boy
Zuga, yeah. Who else? There's so many, man. Tarju Lasano, he's dropping a new video soon. He's an absolute G.
I have to shout out, even though not based in Birmingham, but we've got some people from Birmingham who are part of it. Corso Alto.
Oh, yeah.
Currently in Scotland, actually. So I'm gonna give a little plug. Seb plays in Corso Alto, which is pretty cool. So shout out.
Yeah, there's so many. Yackle are good. We were supposed to play with them and unfortunately couldn't, but they're sick. There's just so many good bands. Basically, find bands and artists that you like and then tell all your mates about it. That's the best thing to do. That's definitely the thing we want to plug.
You asked if... Oh, sorry?
No, sorry. Good.
You asked if any of us do teaching. Maybe I don't know if Rohit knew, but I also teach.
Did not know that.
And
so that's vocals.
Sorry, yeah, singing teaching. So I do like now I do on Zoom, but I have like one-to-one teaching. I teach like my own choirs, and I mentioned I did an opera degree. So even though like I'm in Odd Soul, which is like we can't categorize our music, but future jazz, that kind of like puts me down to a T because I do like all these different styles that I love, and I think that really feeds into to being in Odd Soul, and we all have come like from different pathways, so it's cool to be able to have that kind of background but still have something that gels with everybody else.
Yeah, definitely. No, I suppose wish you all the best with what's to come. And hopefully by the time this episode does come out, you guys are super viral and you've overtaken the Beatles in fame and all of that. But everyone else, go check out our other episodes and be sure to leave a review or likes or whatever that bullshit is. You know, just the usual script at the end of the videos. Thanks for coming. Thanks for
Well,
coming
thanks
on.
for having
Odsal.
us, guys. Yeah, thanks for having us. Really
Brilliant.
appreciate it.
Cheers.
Been a pleasure.